Yoso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho. To the Blessed One, the Lord, who fully attained perfect enlightenment, Savakato Yena Bhagavata Dhammo, to the teaching which he expounded so well, Supatipano Yasa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, Tamayang Bhagavantang Sadamang Sasangang, to these the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, Imehi Sakarehi Atarahang Aropitehi Abhipujayama. We render with offerings our rightful homage. Sadhuno Pande Bhagava Suchira Parini Putopi. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, Bhajima Janathanukamba Manasa, still had compassion for later generations. Ime Sakare tu Katapana Karabhute Patikanhatu. May these simple offerings be accepted. Amhakang digaratang hitaya sukhaya, for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One, Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him, Dhammang Namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, Sanghang Namami, I bow to the Sangha. Annamayang Buddhassa Bhagavato Pubhapa Kanamakarangaromase.
Now let us pay preliminary homage to the Buddha.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Annamayang Buddha se.
Now let us chant in praise of the Buddha.
Yo so tathagato araha sama sambuddho. The Tathagata is the pure one, the perfectly enlightened one. Vicharana sampano. He is impeccable in conduct and understanding. Sugato, the accomplished one. Lokavidu, the knower of the worlds. Anuttaro Purisadhamma Sarati. He trains perfectly those who wish to be trained. Sata Deva Manusanang. He is teacher of gods and humans. Buddho Bhagava. He is awake and holy. Yo imang lokang satevakang samarakang sabramakang. In this world with its gods, demons, and kind spirits, sasamana brahmaning pachang sateva manu sangsayang abinya sachikato apavedesi. Its seekers and sages, celestial and human beings, he has by deep insight revealed the truth. Yautama dese siadi kalayanang mache kalayanang pariyosana kalayanang. He has pointed out the Dhamma, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. Satang sapyanjanang kevala paripurnang parisudang brahmacharyang pakasesi. He has explained the spiritual life of complete purity, essence and conventions. Tamahang Bhagavan Tang Abhipujayami. Tamahang Bhagavan Tang Sirasa Namami. I chant my praise to the Blessed One. I bow my head to the Blessed One. Annamayang Dhamma Viduting Aroma Se.
Now let us chant in praise of the Dhamma.
Yo so Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One. Sanditiko, apparent here and now. Akaliko, timeless. Ehipasiko, encouraging investigation. Opanaiko, leading inwards. Majatang veditabo inyuhi, to be experienced individually by the wise. Tamahang dhammang abhipujayami. Tamahang dhammang sirasa namami. I chant my praise to this teaching. I bow my head to this truth. Annamayang Sangha Bituting Aroma Se.
Now let us chant in praise of the Sangha.
Yo so supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho. They are the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, Ujjupatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, who have practiced directly. Nyayapatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, who have practiced insightfully. Samicipatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, those who practice with integrity. Yadita Chatari Purisa Yukani Yata Purisa Bhukala, that is the four pairs, the 8 kinds of noble beings. Esa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, these are the Blessed One's disciples. Ahunayo, such ones are worthy of gifts. Pahunayo, worthy of hospitality. Dakinayo, worthy of offerings. Anjali Karaniyo, worthy of respect. Anuttarang Punyaketang Lokatsa, they give occasion for incomparable goodness to arise in the world. Tamahang Sangang Apipuchayami, Tamahang Sangang Sirasanamami. I chant my praise to this Sangha. I bow my head to this Sangha.
The sitting posture, the breathing, sound of silence, being the Putto, knowing Dhamma, the truth of the way it is. Or being the owner of the body, identifying with your breathing, and being a person, creating yourself as a person that's got to do something. That's thinking and judging, criticizing, wants all the good things and wants to get rid of all the bad things. So this is just a reflection of, it's just a shift, isn't it? From this personality, this sense of me as a person, and all the kind of qualities of personality, complications of being a personality, to this immanent trust in awareness. Just a shift, subtle, where we see conditions, see experience everything in terms of Dhamma, or the way it is. So this means we see that all condition, we're observing the changingness of conditioned phenomena, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, psychic, through sight, smell, taste, touch. We're seeing Dhamma, there's this knowing Dhamma, they sape sankarani cha, all conditions are impermanent. Or when we fall back into the personal interpretation, then it becomes complicated. Me and my problems, my fears and desires, my aspirations, my grief, sorrow, my body. And if we don't know the difference, then we're stuck on that level of just always being limited, bound to physical identity, to that is, is getting old. And will die. So then there's this fear of death. What will happen when I die? We feel I'm going to die. My body, we feel that when the body dies, I die. I die with my body. So in this Putto, Dhammo, Sangho relationship, these are conventions, admittedly, they're words, but they're not to be grasped as beliefs in anything, but reminders. So religion, any religion, is really a convention for reminding, remembering, where rather than, when we create it into something sacred, the conventional into the sacred, then we make it ultimate and an end in itself. We're binding ourselves still to conventional, to conditions, rather than pointing beyond the conditioned realm. So, this Theravada Buddhism, these teachings are pointing, not pointing to themselves or to Theravada Buddhism, but merely like directional signs. Which way is San Francisco? And then you follow the sign, you get there. If you just attach to the sign pointing to San Francisco, you'll never get there. The concept of purity. We think on the personal level. Do you see? Do any of you really conceive yourself as pure, as a person? I don't. My personality is. I can't claim my personality is pure. So then the sense of purity are from the Sakyaditi level. Reflect on this. if I'm trying to make myself pure from an idea of purity, which is an ideal, or is it a reality? And so, but on the personal level, if I'm caught in the Sakyaditi problem, then there's always going to be a doubt. No matter how good I am, no matter how strict I am with monastic discipline, no matter how virtuous I try to live my life, I've never felt really pure personally from keeping the Vinaya or being good. There's always a sense of doubt about it. So, the sense of what is purity? Is it just annihilation, just wipe everything out? Is it like those kind of agents you use to clean the toilet that kills every German site? Or is it awareness? And this is a investigation. I'm just using this word purity. So in just reflecting this way, then I see that Buddha is pure, or Buddha, or in a practical sense, getting outside the Pali word itself, mindfulness wisdom. So this mindfulness wisdom is not Sakyaditi. That's why, you can fool yourself. You can convince yourself, I'm very pure, or I'm purer than you are, that kind of thing. It can be, a kind of conceit of, I'm the most pure person in this room. It could carry it to a kind of ultimate arrogance. Or is purity our true nature that we're accessing through awareness? So this is an investigation. It's not a doctrinal teaching I'm giving you. It's for investigation, taking the word purity and what do we really mean by it? It's common enough English word. It's not, it's not a rare kind of concept in ordinary English, but what do we mean? And in terms of purity here and now, so then through this kind of investigation or inquiry, then the insight I have is purity is this awareness. And so this purity is always with us. It's not, or you can even go as far as saying it's consciousness. Pure consciousness. Because consciousness in this respect isn't flavored with Sakyaditi, Silabhata Paramasa, Vicikiccha. So then when you talk about, the enlightenment is going home, returning, the story of the spiritual wanderer that searches the world for is, a true home and ends up back where he or she started. So this awareness then is the gate. When we use these words, sati sampajañña, these are conventions in themselves, but it's pointing to this, points to the gate, to the gap, to the awareness of the way it is. So the way it is in terms of sankhara is like this. So your ability to observe the body, the posture, the sensations of sitting, the breathing, feeling hot or cold, pleasure, pain through the body at this very moment, or emotionally, what you're feeling right now, happy, sad, dull, doubtful, resentful, whatever the emotional mood you might be noticing, that which notices the mood. That's the purity. And so you say that's your true, take that identity, the refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, rather than, fully committing yourself to your personal conditioning, cultural biases, and views and opinions about how things should or shouldn't be. Now, Sakyaditi is the first fetter of 10 fetters, and then the eighth fetter. This is called mana, or translated generally as conceit. So the first three fetters are for realizing stream entry, sotapanna. So this means that these artificial things, these created, culturally programmed, like language, cultural attitudes, conventional cultural conventions, the ego, these are obstructing the path or the stream. That's why it's, I feel it very important to emphasize, get to know these fetters. It's not about getting rid of them, but they're not really the problem. The fetters are not the problem. It's attachment, ignorance and attachment, identity, commitment, unquestioned commitment to conditioned phenomena that is the obstruction, the obstacle. So personality is not an obstacle, nor is cultural conditioning, nor is thinking. But attachment to these out of ignorance is the obstruction. Now the very last fetter is that falls away is avijja, or ignorance. So the last three fetters fall away, and then this is what they refer to as arahant. Now that's mana, uddhacca, and avijja. And these are the Pali terms. Mana is a sense of I am. There's still a sense of separateness. But it's not Sakyaditi in I am Ajahn Sumedho, I am good person, bad person, whatever. It's just still an unresolved sense of separateness, which in Advaita Vedanta systems they use, don't they? I am that kind of thing is Christianity. I am that I am. So this is not Sakya Ditti. And so in this word conceit, it's not like mana isn't like personal conceit, but it still can be a subtle sense of separation. Because it's a fair enough statement to say, to acknowledge existence as a separate entity. I am. It's not separate yet. It's not, defining myself as a person. It's merely a statement of being present, this body present here and now. That pure subjectivity, I am, and then I am that, or who am I? These kind of questions are ways of inquiring, and then in Advaita they drop away too. They're not ends in themselves. It's just skillful use of these conditions. Because I am is still a word, isn't it? Still whatever language you speak, you have your own way of asserting your presence, your being present. Now, I say, you just experiment with I am on a universal scale. I am consciousness. I am love. Or then, because these are using unconditioned love, not a personal liking or infatuation or anything like that, is this I am unconditioned love, I am consciousness, that works. And it's universal, isn't it? It's a universal. It's not defining your separateness. But then you say, I am Ajahn Sumedho, I am a man, I am a woman, I am a Buddhist, I'm an American, I am Caucasian, black, I am young, old, I am happy, sad, good, bad. Then we get into the adjectives that are personal identities. Well, then, in terms of a fetter, this you see, as you investigate, you don't need to do this anymore. It's not I am. The need to think falls away. And it's just pure consciousness. And restlessness, uddhacca, is the nature of this realm, a changing realm, isn't it? The samsara, the conditions changing. This is a restless realm, the sense realm. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, feeling. It's all about movement and change. And so the restlessness is we want to get rid of it. We think we have to get rid of restlessness. We think the arhat doesn't have any restlessness anymore. He's completely beyond it, conquered it, and this is still personal interpretations of that. But in inquiring into this restlessness and avijja, ignorance of the Dhamma, so the complete relinquishing of avijja doesn't mean you don't feel restless, but you're no longer, I mean, you're seeing it in terms of the way it is rather than as some kind of personal, or seeing it in, just in being caught into it. Not seeing it in terms of this in Dhamma, but seeing it in terms of maybe a fetter or a problem for you. So then when we talk about stillness, this sense of stillness, the one-pointed, ekagata, or agupa jeta vimutti, unshakable heart. Unshakable deliverance of the heart. So it's agupa is unshakable jeta vimutti, deliverance of the jitta, consciousness, heart, whatever words you like to use. Now this is, and if you practice this way, then you do experience this sense of stillness, unshakability. It's reality. And then that puts into perspective the restlessness, the lingering sense of separateness I am, and any kind of subtle movements and that still remain unacknowledged. But you're no longer deluded by them because you're centered in this stillness, natural stillness, which is not a static, dead stillness. It's alive. It's not like you disappear into a void, a kind of dead void of nothingness. So the agupa jeta vimutti, the unshakable deliverance of the heart, is not, that's more poetic. Or you can put it, it's complete cessation. That sounds almost nihilistic. And the word heart, we like the word heart because it does convey a sense of life. We're not just kind of cutting ourselves off from feeling and not feeling and just going into a state of dead stillness, sterile, unfeeling, void of nothing. I mean, that's annihilationism. And that's how it might sound in the thinking, in the logic that you might use in just grasping the concepts of nibbana or the arahant or whatever. Or take it's interesting, the zero. Do you realize that Europe didn't have a zero till fairly recently? And that zero came into Europe through the Muslims, through the Saracens, the Saracen invasions. So I mean, that's in like 9th century or whatever. But in fact, Christianity thought zero was evil. It was outlawed. It's the devil. It's annihilation. Now, according to the history of zero, it was first known, used by the Sumerians, the civilization Sumeria, which I think is Iraq today. and then, and then, and then it went to India, and then the Arabs, because they were traders, picked it up from India and brought it into Europe. Or Alexander the Great, actually, when he went to India, he brought it back to Greece, but it never, it was dismissed. It doesn't. The Greeks never used zero to build their beautiful architecture, or the Egyptians. This is interesting because now we just take zero for granted as part, part of mathematics, and it's a very practical thing to have. You can add 0 plus 1 equals 1, doesn't it? But 0 times 1 is 0. And this is, it is an annihilation, but it allows things to cease, so you start anew. In mathematics, isn't it? And 1 then is like in this sense, the number 1 implies division. 1 digit coming from 0. All numbers from 1 through 9 come out of 0. So 0 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they're not conflicting with each other. You don't annihilate numbers with 0 as some kind of final annihilation of everything. Or in meditation, you're not annihilating the world or the self or cultural conditioning or altruism or idealism or anything. It's not an annihilation. But it gives perspective on all the rest. 0, emptiness. Without that, then we are merely fumbling around with numbers. And good enough, we can, the Greeks certainly created beautiful architecture, and the Egyptians and so forth, and the geometry with forms. But in the development of wisdom, then, this is where the Buddhist is very clear. The Lord Buddha is very clear. There is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. And because there is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned, there is escape from the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. So in every given moment when you're mindful, you cease. The sense of yourself it's like, you're not annihilating yourself. It's not cessation, it's some kind of permanent, absolute, total annihilation of a personality. But you're no longer, you see the suffering you create by just binding yourself to personal habits and identities and conditioned phenomena. That's the dukkha of the First Noble Truths. That just, limiting yourself to the conditions you require. Some of you, some people have very good conditions. They get good parenting and they live in benevolent societies, and they, go to good schools and with good teachers and have all kinds of good things happen to them. So their sense of themselves is probably very good because they've received very good conditioning. But others get to go to the opposite extreme, where your parents die, you're an orphan, and nobody wants you, and you're living in poverty, and you're told you're vermin, and I mean, you get a whole set of lousy conditions to live with. So you're like the Devadas. You get born into a well-off family, morally respectable, good behavior, kind, gentle, loving parents, and having all the advantages is certainly, good conditioning, but not everybody gets that. But then, and so this is where the awakening of the Buddha, the Buddha's awakening is not saying you have to have really good parenting and loving conditions and wealth and privilege to become enlightened. It means that even the most wretched conditions, if you're willing to be mindful of them, they're not obstructions. So the sense, you can bind yourself to the fact that nobody's ever been very good to me. I've had to struggle and fight my way, and I've been looked down on, despised, mistreated. My mother hated me. My father used to abuse me, and my life is a total wreck because all the conditioning was rotten to the core. And so I'm a helpless victim of my conditioning. Or awakening that individual to this Sakyaditi Silabhata Paramasa Vicikicca, a way of looking and observing. It's not judging or criticizing. So Sakyaditi can be, one can have very positive sense of positive feeling and respect for yourself as a person because of the conditioning, good parenting, good opportunities. Or you might have not had such good conditioning, and so your sense of yourself is aversion, feeling victimized, feeling inferior. But none of this is obstructive unless you fully commit yourself to grasping the conditioning. One thing most of us find that is, if one has such a good set of conditioning, maybe you don't experience that much suffering. Hey, let's just be happy, life is wonderful. I'm just thrilled, and I love things, and why do you want to become a monk, a nun, or sit, Spirit Rock for 10 days? Why not just go out and enjoy? Life is a banquet. Have a party. I mean, there's no seen any need for, because the suffering is not, the suffering has not become apparent yet. But for others, people with disabilities, or that sometimes the very fact that they have disabilities propel them to investigate suffering, because they don't have such an easy life, such opportunities. So sometimes our disabilities or our suffering is a gift. How many people have never acknowledge suffering until they get cancer, or they lose somebody they love a lot. Somebody, your beloved partner dies, or whatever. And then the loss of the loved, or having a terminal illness. That can be, one can see it as a curse or unfair, on a sakyaditi level, or you can see it as an opportunity, as a gift, because it wakes you up. Suddenly you can't just ride along and everything's fine, I'm happy, because you're faced with maybe terminal illness or a grief, where you lost somebody that you depended on, your life was centered around, that you were very committed to, attached to, and then they die. So there's grief and sorrow can awaken us to Dhamma. So in Buddhist terms, old age, sickness, death, these are what they call deva dutas, heavenly messengers. Devas are like heavenly, tutas are messengers. So years ago, I remember when I first became a monk, a Thai monk asked me, in Christianity, do you have angels? And I said, oh yes. And he said, what do they look like? And I said, well, they're white with wings and they play harps. They're very beautiful. And he smiled and he said, Buddhism has angels, And I said, oh, what do they look like? And he said, old age, sickness, death. and monastics, monks and nuns. Now that is 4 devadutas. And so this, do you look at old people as an angel, When you look at old people, what do you, do you see them as just, look at that old geezer, Or do you see it as a devaduta? This is going to happen to me. It's a warning, isn't it? It's a messenger. Look at old people in society here as messengers. We're all warning you of the impermanence of conditioned phenomena. Old age, sickness is another devaduta, where we think, how can we get rid of all sickness? We don't like sickness. And, if we could just annihilate illness, sickness, disease, that'd be wonderful. Never have any sicknesses anymore. But that's part of the human karmic condition, isn't it? Sickness. We get old, we get sick, and then death. Death is some kind of terrifying curse, skeleton, dark, grim, eerie, spooky death. Horror shows are all about, you have skulls and nasty things that convey evil and death and misery. Frightening images, isn't it? That are terrifying. Or seeing it as a messenger. And then the samana, like the Buddha, before he was the Buddha, the Prince Siddhartha. This story, this legendary story of leaving the palace. It's like the palace is where everything is beautiful and wonderful. Like the legendary story of a prince born in a privileged situation, had the best of everything. And his father forbade any old people into the palace, or sick people, or corpses, or samanas, holy men, sadhus, or anything like that. They weren't allowed in. You want to surround your son with all that is beautiful, exciting, vigorous, lively, and he didn't want any of the others because they would, he wanted his son to become a world emperor. He didn't want him to become a Buddha or a sadhu. So then the prince, sees through all the kind of pleasurable, privileged life of the palace and goes outside and sees sick man, corpse, old person, and sadhu sitting under a tree meditating. So, see, I like to see my form here, the Buddhist monk, as a devaduta. Because it has a powerful impression, or visual impression, as a kind of archetype. Because it is, the shaven head and the ochre robe, and that is not about fashion or anything. It's about, it's conveying a message of seeking truth or spiritual development. So these are the devadutas, the heavenly messengers. Well, then, so here in the California, for example, there's more concern now, isn't there, about old age, and there's a lot of interest in treating cancer and AIDS and things like this. Where at one time we just wanted to get rid of these diseases. Hopefully, back 50 years ago, we thought we would have a cure for cancer by now. We had such great faith in medical science that by this time, 2008, there wouldn't be any more cancer. And because, we had found cures for tuberculosis and all kinds of other diseases. So there's this, annihilating disease, or is disease a devaduta? And so that's, you can reflect on this, how you want to regard it. A curse, a punishment for your wrongs, or whatever, you can regard it any way you like. But the one I found skillful and useful is the devaduta. Physical pain, disease, sickness, old age, death. And then to have in society, this sense of spiritual path, people living, practicing, committed to a spiritual path, whose whole aim is towards liberation. This is like a devaduta. Now it'd be sakyaditi to go around thinking I'm a devaduta. I mean, it's a reflection, isn't it? This is where the sense of purity, think I'm pure. I've been a monk for so long, celibate and everything. I'm purer than you are. Haven't had sex for over 40 years, so I'm slightly better than you. Or we don't have money, so that you have to have money, still filthy lucre, and so I'm that's sakyaditi, isn't it? It's I'm better than you are. I'm so pure. It's kind of what we a hypocrisy that we detest in religions, holier than thou. But that's all sakyaditi, when seen in this way. Or you can think, Ajahn Sumedho is much better than I am because he's lived the holy life and I haven't. That's Sakyaditi. You see yourself as inferior or lesser than I am, or I see myself as superior to you. It's all the same thing, really, and put in this category of Sakyaditi. So your refuge is in the awareness of Sakyaditi, not judging it, not grasping it or annihilating it, but recognizing. Because we all have these various, just notice how the sense of yourself, your ego, operates according to, when you're eating food or sharing a room with somebody, or, we feeling self-conscious or admiring somebody and feeling threatened or inferior to them, or feeling better than somebody else, that you're much more clever, gifted than somebody else is. It's not to say you shouldn't think these kind of thoughts or feel these conditions, but your relationship to them now is knowing, that is a condition. So your refuge is in Putto Dhammo, awareness, the purity of awareness, not as a condemnation of impurity, but recognizing the nature of conditioned phenomena. Its very nature is dukkha, or change. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's not, conditioned realm isn't supposed to be static, where you have just goodness that never changes, or happiness that never dies. But where these are ideals, but that's not the way things are. To know Dhamma is to see the conditioned, and that means, the subtle, refined to the coarse, as anicca, dukkha, anatta. And then your refuge is in the unconditioned, unborn. And that is recognized through awakened conscious awareness.
Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him, Dhammang Namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well